This is the second video lecture for this week. This one is planning a family child care program. And we have all this wonderful diversity, and this is one part of facet of our industry that is a little bit remarkable and diverse as well. And it's your family child care homes. It can be quite a different environment than it can be in more of a center-based program, but they are still incredibly valuable, and they typically provide lower cost care, accommodate siblings of different ages, and provide for the diverse schedules of some of the families. So we are meeting this tremendous need that we have in our communities. Families that might work really untraditional schedules and need very early care, a family child care provider might be able to accommodate for that, or they can go later on into the evenings as well. And you'll typically have less overhead. In order to accommodate such a wide variety of schedules, you might need to have a lot of overhead. You would have to keep the center up and running, lights on, heaters on, a director involved, classrooms open, that sort of stuff. Whereas a family child care provider, if they choose to, they can do this in their own home with maybe some of that lower overhead, and so they're able to kind of meet some of those needs. Also, with siblings of different ages, there's a woman in my neighborhood who provides a wonderful family child care. And so during the day, she just has a grandchild and then another toddler that she provides care for, but she does before and after school for a couple of other school-age children. And that's the primary work that she does, is she does that morning and after school, especially for schools that have part-day kinders and things like that. Those types of programs are really, really valuable. And in 2016, it cost parents yearly and on average $13,000 for infant child care and center-based care, and $8,000 in in-home FCC. So there is quite a difference, and it's typically at a lower cost, once again, because you don't have the overhead of running centers, rents, and things like that. So it costs parents about $9,000 for an out-of-home program for a child over the age of 3, and then less, a little less than $8,000 for FCC, and then that's yearly on average. So there's a lot of children under the age of 6 who have working parents, and FCC homes typically provide a lot of care. There are advantages and disadvantages of providing care in your own home, and I would like to just put those out there at the very beginning. The advantages are when you have young children, caring for your own children in a home environment is great, and then bringing on some other children as well is a great way to add to your income while also staying home with your kids. There is also a huge possibility for continuity of care, so you could have the same child from infancy up until school age. So instead of them moving to a center to different classrooms, they're with the same caregiver and develop that really responsive relationship over years and years, which is a really special thing as well. And you typically have very close relationships with the children, and you typically have very close relationships with the families. That can also be a disadvantage as well, as the close relationships, keeping boundaries when you need them to pay you or you have to increase your fees. That can be difficult when you have had such close relationships with families. A lot of times you can have longer hours, and I talked about how sometimes parents who have variable hours will need longer care, and they might get that from an FCC provider. So typically, if you allow that type of stuff, you yourself might cover for it and have those longer hours, and should be compensated accordingly. So FCC providers can typically be cheaper. That doesn't mean that you're ever doing your labor or your work for free, and you need to negotiate that with your families, and also know how much you would like to be paid in order to accommodate these hours as well. A lot of times there's a lack of community and adult interactions for teachers. There's a lot of national and state programs for FCC providers. So if you're feeling like you don't have a community, you don't have a lot of adult interaction with other teachers who can give you ideas, please go onto the Facebook sites or just search for national organizations, because they are out there and they will help you kind of get your network together of teachers who are also as well. Another disadvantage is your home is your work. And so sometimes that's nice. You can come downstairs and you can be at work. Your commute is very minimal. You have the food that you want to eat. This is your home. You feel comfortable there. But then at the same time, there's not a lot of space and there's not a lot of boundaries. And also having a lot of children in your house can cause some wear and tear on your house. And a lot of times FCC providers do not take this into their cost and their budget as well. So they need to know what the cost is on their house, and how that's going to change, how they keep upkeep, and factor that into their annual budget. And then once again, pay can be variable. A lot of FCC providers have it set up that if the child doesn't come, they don't have to pay. And this can be difficult for you if you are not getting paid the regular amount that you need to have. Sometimes it's nice that you can take off longer around Christmas time, but then your pay will be variable as well because you typically don't have vacation time and that you're your own provider as well. I do like this. This video is called Meet Natasha, a family child care provider. I really like her. This is from the childcarevideos.org, family child care providers. It talks about the advantages and disadvantages, and it talks about this woman who is running an FCC home out of her own home, why she likes it and why she does it. And then I also talk about why our FCC providers are so necessary, and they're kind of meeting some needs that maybe centers can't always meet. Once again, it should be developmentally appropriate care throughout the day. I have a book, it's from 1991. It's called Creative Curriculum for Family Child Care. Why? I don't have it on my bookshelves at home, but I love it. It is really old, I know. It's like 26 years old. Mine is literally from 1991. But I think it is a classic book, and the creative curriculum is fairly classic because I think that it really understands the balance that an FCC provider needs to achieve. Indoor, outdoor, quiet, active, planned, unstructured. This is coming from people that have done it before and so know those moments, like you need to have a go bag, you need to be able to meet the needs of the infant and the toddler and the preschooler at meal times. So it really talks about routines, making routines meaningful, planning for hectic times that you know you're going to have, like you pick up or you drop off, or if you don't have a great outdoor space and you have to go to a park. Or another advantage of having FCC provider is that they can typically get out and about in the community more often as well. If you have a small family child care home, you can have a large stroller and get out in the community. So I love this book, and I think that it really talks about the developmental aspect of childcare, and that you have many, it's mixed age typically in an FCC home. How do you plan for mixed age? In centers, we can have mixed age. Most programs don't do it because it changes your ratio so much lower that it's financially not as feasible to have mixed age. In FCC providers, because licensing is a little bit different, you can have mixed age, and it might be easier for you to do. So since it is mixed age, there are some strengths and there are some weaknesses to it. And I think this book is a really fantastic resource. And if you are writing an FCC provider, looking for the creative curriculum for family child care, really cheap on Amazon, and I've even seen that at the public libraries. So I do want to talk about the difference between small family child care home and large family child care home. So per licensing, the maximum number of children cared for, including children under 10 who live in the home, is one of the following: 4 infants or 6 children with no more of 3 of whom may be infants. And then 6 children or up to 8 children when 1 child. So you really need to know which one that you're in so that you can staff yourself appropriately. So this is typically for somebody who is themselves with a variety of children of different age groups, and this tells you if they're over 6, if they're under 6, if they're infants, if they're not infants. I've never run my own FCC program before, but I did sub throughout college in a large family child care home. So my best friend's neighbor ran her own large family child care home. When she needed to be on vacation or her teacher needed to be on vacation, I would fill one of those spots. So typically as this business owner, she didn't take that much vacation, or if she did, she would shut it down for those 2 weeks in the summer and let the families know. I typically subbed for her teacher because I had I was in my bachelor's getting my child development, so I had all of my units, and she just kept like a basic file on me at her home, and I was her kind of sub when I was off school, like at Christmas break, summer break, or sometimes even if I needed to after school if my schedule from college allowed it. So it was typically her and an assistant in the home, and then she had a wide variety of children who were under the age of 10. So 12, I think she had 12, no more than 4 of whom would be infants. I think at The most she ever had was 3 infants with 12 children. That was not most of her day because she had 4 children of her own, 3 who were in childcare, 3 who were in school at the end of the day. So that's her own children and the children of the staff member, the teacher that she had, played into her own ratios. And so it was a really fantastic example for me in how to keep ratios and also how to kind of meet the needs that you need in a large family childcare home. So substitutes, so for me, she had a file with me. I did have my background check, and then she just had my transcripts, I believe, that she just kept, and she would bring out that file when I was around. So it was, she had a really clear plan for sickness, injury, and vacations for her staff teacher. So her teacher, she gave her like time off, and then I subbed for it. She also had it for if her and her teacher were going to be sick. I don't think that happened very often. I think she mentioned that she had to do it like, there was like a terrible flu one time and both teachers were horribly sick. And so she had a clear written plan on file with all the parents saying, look, if I break my leg, this other teacher breaks her leg, we both have the flu, you know, we cannot physically keep this going. So there are going to be days that we might have to be out and you would have to have care of your children. So if she was sick, then, you know, she would give numbers of like places that might do drop-in care, but it was also kind of on the parents, like, I'm not going to do this all the time. And like I said, I think it happened once or twice that, you know, this FCC is not open, but it bears telling the parents that this is something that was going to happen. I've heard of centers having to do this. One time a teacher told me she worked somewhere in Temecula and like she had 6 people call out and then like 4 teachers started puking and she literally did not have enough staff and could not get subs from anywhere else and had to kind of shut down the class or shut it down to like 1 to 2 classrooms until the kids came home. That's the only time I've heard about that. So typically it doesn't happen in centers. You have enough of a fallback of staff and things like that. But in an FCC home, you might need to tell parents what that's going to happen. Also, per licensing, a licensee should be present in the home and ensure that children are supervised. A substitute adult might care for children up to 20% of the time. So I'm not sure that she ever, the person I subbed for ever tracked that I was there 20% of the time. I would say it was much less. We're looking at 2 weeks here, a week there, something like that. I did sub for her for, I think it was only 2 weeks for her maternity leave. So she had like her 4th child and she got 2 weeks off before she kind of had to jump back into the mix of things. If it's only one person, if you're a small family child care, what's the plan in case of emergency? Like, what if your husband breaks his leg? What if you break your leg? You know, how are you going to communicate with this with parents as well? And then once again, consider college students like I was for this woman as a needed temp basis as well. And then also, will you take children mildly ill? What's your exclusion policy? Also, if you're not taking them when you're ill, which you probably shouldn't do, is there mildly ill care for children too sick to attend your program? Is there something around them for them to attend? Once again, it kind of goes with that, the duality of you're really close to their families, which for some people is really nice, and then you're also really close to families. You might know that they really need you for childcare because they need to get to work, and then you might make those types of decisions like taking a child when you know that they're really too sick to attend. So you need to understand at the end of the day that you have a business arrangement and you provide a service. You provide childcare for a fee. So strong policies, strong procedures that are communicated clearly are really, really necessary in this situation because you are going to have those strong family bonds with the families. So if being written and being clear is really going to save you some heartache and maybe some misunderstanding down the road as well. Your environment and space planning as well. The license for your home cannot be transferred to another location. So if you move, your license does not move with you. You need to start all over based on the space that you now have. You also need to have enough furnishing, toys, and activities for mixed age care, so maybe up to the age of 10. So a decade worth of ages and stages to provide toys and space for. And then there are special infant considerations from licensing as well that you should be aware of and go and look at the licensing requirement book that's online. Outdoor space as well. So outdoor space should be provided at least daily. If you have a outside area, that you have it safe closed off, not able to get into different parts of your house or different parts of your backyard that you do not want them to go on, maybe where you store your motor, to your lawnmower, you know, something like that. So it is going to vary widely. If you don't have a backyard, getting out every day to get to a nearby park or open space. And then there are logistical concerns as well. If you need to leave your home, then there needs to be car seats in the car, there needs to be a stroller, there needs to be safe transportation of any sort. And in this case as well, encouraging older toddlers in preschool age, this helps with their self-help skills in this age group. If it's mixed age, that is one thing that we have known and studied from programs that have mixed age, is that to older toddlers and preschoolers typically have better self-help skills in dressing themselves and getting on their own jackets and shoes because they're learning from older children. And there's also some necessity that they get it as well because you might be busy with an infant or younger toddler. Plan for age groups as well. How can an infant be stimulated with books and music while you're watching the preschoolers on a tricycle or a playground? In your own backyard, you typically have some independence and control as well. You can have gardens and larger gardens as well. Water and sand, you can add to it how you see fit. Small equipment, music and movement. That's one of the fantastic advantages of family childcare is it's your program. You really, as long as you're following licensing, you get to focus on the areas that are of interest to you. So if you're a huge gardener, including the children in your garden is going to be fantastic. Safety as well, how you store materials and equipment so that it is safe. This is your house after all, so you might have other family members within your home that you need to keep the children away from, you know, your older son's shaving cream and razor, you know, that can't be in the downstairs bathroom that the little kids are using. You also need to look at fire clearance from a fire authority. All child care centers must have this. And then the safety of the outdoors and the outdoor home environment. That's why safety checklists are going to be so important. And for your weekly assignment, this week, you're going to be doing an indoor and outdoor daily safety checklist. I'm going to provide a template, and you're going to put your own items onto the checklist. If you're on a Mac, you can recreate it if it's too hard to get it in mind, or you can make yours and make it into an editable PDF. So you can always remake it, but I do give you a template so that you could just add to it as well. So it's going to be, think of general ones, like all programs across the spectrum should have a fire clearance, and they should have, you know, no body of water that's unfenced, you know, things like that, or outlet covers. And then it should also be specific to the program you're currently running or want to run or want to be in. So if you're an FCC home, once again, a secured fence around a swimming pool, or if you're in an infant and toddler program, what is really important for infants and toddlers? If you're a school age program in an elementary school, you know, something like that. So you can make it very general and very specific as well. Once again, I'll provide you a template. You can recreate it if it's really difficult based on the program you're on at your own computer program. Then there's health concerns for any classroom are going to be the same for an FCC provider. So hand washing, diapering, cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting are all going to be issues. So the things that I've talked about in previous weeks will also apply to you at an FCC program. Then communicating health concerns to your own family members. This is something that other programs won't have to deal with. So if you have family members in your own program, probably having a no smoking rule. Nobody wants to walk into a house and smell smoke. It's hard to get rid of the smoke. Even if it's upstairs or away from the children, there should be a no smoke. Food preparation and storage within your home kitchen as well. You don't want people, especially if you follow the food program, where you can't have your other kids that are not in the FCC home, or your stepkids or your uncle or your grandma eating the food that you've bought specifically for the food program in your program. That's your food, and you need to have some way of labeling it and keeping it safe, secure, and food handler safe for the children in your program. And then also, if your own child is sick, how do you kind of take care of that as well? Are they going to be isolated and grandma watches them upstairs? You know, how do you going to handle illness within your own family? And then also, I think as well, there's transportation issues and the safety of transportation issues. Like I said before, an advantage of FCC is that you can pick up and drop off if you have a school age kind of component to your large family home. So you need to typically have a go bag with contact information of all the children, medical authorization forms, medicine in a locked case in case a child needs an EpiPen at any moment on that walk, and then a small first aid kit as well. Typically, if you're going to be driving, you need to be a California licensed driver. You need to have insurance, registration, the car seats specific for the child that you have, infant, toddler, preschooler, boosters, all that type of thing. The type of vehicle, and then no smoking rule in the car as well. So transportation is something that FCC providers might be able to do, but there needs to be some logistical issues figured out. Then clearance and liability. So anybody who lives in the home must obtain a California criminal record clearance and be checked against the Child Abuse Essential Index. Non-negotiable, if somebody is living in your home, has come into your home, is crashing on your couch, they need to have this. That's one of the larger hits for the FCC program when it comes to licensing. Is somebody, if they come by and somebody is not in the, if somebody is living in the house who does not have this could be a big issue, and you might even potentially be shut down. You also need to carry liability in your FCC home. Same with centers as well. You need to carry liability in case something needs to happen. This is very common. Even when I worked with children with special needs and I went into their home, if I was an independent contractor, I still had to carry liability, I believe up into $100,000, which was added fees that I might have to carry. And that's why I always did it through a vendor or a nonprofit organization, so I didn't have to carry liability myself. But there are lots of organizations out there that help FCC providers and centers as well kind of handle liability and how much you probably need. Depending on the program, it might start at $500,000 and might go in excess of $1 million that you carry in liability. If you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to kind of answer them. As far as I know, liability is not an area of expertise that I know specifically, because I never carried it as an individual, and I only helped do it when I was with a center. But I would be more than happy to kind of point you in the right direction now. So what are some training and resources for FCC providers? I think in UC Davis, I like this. It's called Child Care at its Best, and it's a free training and support program. So if you go to the Human Services at UC Davis, it's called Family Child Care at its Best. It's a program. It's both like a support program, networking program, and then there's free trainings as well. So I love this. I think for people in California, this is the best place to start if you want to grow your own network, or you want to have trainings for anybody who kind of works in your large family child care home. As far as licensing, you need to have 7 hours of health training. You need to have pediatric CPR and first aid. And the person who holds this training must be on site at all times. And actually, as that person's sub, I had this because I'd worked in centers, and so I was the person who had this. And then there is the new, and this is wrong, I need to change it, the new child abuse training requirements were released last year. And everybody, an entire class, an entire FCC, and an entire center has to be trained in this online training. So in conclusion, family child care providers are really important. They fulfill a really important community need for their own families typically, and then also families in the community who might have more untraditional needs than maybe a center can meet. They also need to hold themselves to the same professional standards. It might be a little bit different, but they still need to be professional standards which they hold themselves against. And then there needs to be health, safety, licensing, environmental planning, and transportation concerns that might be a little bit different, once again, that FCC providers need to be hyper aware of. So once again, this is a fantastic group of childcare that FCC providers fulfill this need in. It's part of the wonderful diversity of early childhood education programs as a whole. This is the second lecture for this week. So I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Thanks.